Hey everyone, Tim with Ghost Towns, Washington, and for today's mine exploration adventure, we are headed out to a antimony mine that dates to around 1900. And those of you who follow us or are fellow mine enthusiasts, you may recognize this site. So before we get over to the tunnel we're going to explore today, as we were coming up, we came across this natural little cut cavern in the cliff face. So we're gonna go up in there and just see if this had anything to do with the mining activity in this area. As you can see, it is a little bit of a wet early spring day in the Pacific Northwest. Got some liquid sunshine going on out here, but we do have a couple surprises for you today. We are going to explore the adit that we make our way over to after this little sidetrack. We are going to show you what a 100-year-old miner's lamp looks like in a 125-year-old mine. So we hope you enjoy having the opportunity to see that. And we might have one or two other surprises for you in this video. So please be sure to watch to the end. So we're at the cavern here, kind of taking a look inside. See the water running down from above there. It's a pretty wet day, as I mentioned below. So there's a ladder back in here. That looks like it's probably not all that old. Definitely doesn't date back to the mining era, but it's probably added at some point many years ago by somebody, maybe rock hounding or something else. And as we come back in here, you can see this area back in here looks like perhaps there was some prospecting going on, and they were taking some samples of the material back in here. Oh, and before we go too far, it looks like we have a bat that we don't want to disturb, but we're going to show you. This guy's asleep. Just one last look at this guy here. And you can see why this is a really good home for this guy. Nice and protected back here in this cavern. Looks like somebody's headlamp crapped out on them, which is always frustrating. But I think probably the biggest prize of coming up to this little prospect slash natural cavern is just the view here that we're coming into, going back out. And you can just see how picturesque that is. And it's a pretty good size opening. I think Drew's just standing right below it, so that'll give us some scale here as we come out. And you can see Drew right there to give you an idea of how big this thing is. Really cool. So next, we're going to make our way back down and make our way over up to the upper mine here. And we got a surprise for you once we get over there. We made our way from the cavern, which was directly across from where the camera's pointed. And now we are at the added entrance of the mine we're going to explore today. So we'll just take a quick look inside here. And it looks like we've got a little bit of water, unfortunately. But it's pretty wet today, so not going to worry about it too much. So I mentioned earlier in the video, and obviously the thumbnail of the video, I mentioned we are going to be using a 100-year-old carbide lamp to start off exploring this 100-year-old mine. So we'll come back over here and show you the lamp. So here is our carbide lamp. And again, this lamp probably dates around to 1925, possibly earlier. We have the carbide chamber right here, the reflector here, the burner tip in here, and then our water is in here. So this right here is the dripper, and you have this lever here. I can adjust the drip, and then the water will drip down into the carbide, and that creates a settling gas, which then travels up through here. There's a filter behind here, and then moves up to the burner tip, which you ignite, and you get your flame. So we're going to go ahead and load this up with some carbide. There's a couple things to remember when you're using these. You definitely want to make sure it's functioning properly. Otherwise, the gas will just build up in the chamber down here and have no way to release, and they can become a little bit dangerous if they're not properly serviced or maintained. So we've rebuilt this one, the new gasket and filter, and we've cleaned all the parts just to make sure everything's working properly. All right, so we're going to get our carbide loaded kind of quick because it's wet out here, so you can already see the gas is starting to go here. I'm going to get all this carbide in there. I dropped a couple pieces. I don't want to leave any out. It's not the most environmentally friendly stuff in the world to leave. So we'll go ahead and get this tightened up. All right, so now we have our carbide in. Our water chamber has water, so we're going to start our drip here. And I'm just going to move it up maybe 4 or 5 clicks so we don't get too much water going. Too much is not a good thing. So there we go. There's our flame. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and make our way into the mine and see what it looked like about 100 and some years ago. Okay, so we have our lamp here, and probably would have been something like this, but man, you can see. And again, this lamp may not be putting off the most ideal, perfect flame, but it is definitely not that easy to see. So try to up that a little bit, see if it does anything for us. You can kind of see how hard it would have been to see in here. And to give you an idea, when we talk about carbide writing, you know, the soot that comes off the flame here is what miners would use to make markings on the walls like this. And you can see there, that's what, when we share those carbide graffiti items in mines we find, that's how it's done, by just taking this and just drawing on there with the flame. And there's what carbide lamp graffiti looks like when you've done it with a carbide lamp. So I can tell you, just looking at the camera screen, it definitely looks like this lamp is virtually doing nothing. It's fairly dim, but with the naked eye in reality versus through a lens, you can see, but it's still pretty dim. So there is the carbide lamp graffiti that hopefully nobody is offended that we left here. Just to demonstrate to you how this thing worked and how they used it to make graffiti. I definitely have an appreciation for how hard it was to see with these things in a mine compared to our modern lighting. And I'll just kind of show you one more time here, since the lighting was kind of bad, but this is how the carbide is transferred on just through the flame here. You can see how it's just darkening that up. Right, and there you have it. Maybe we'll do this. And just show you here with the actual light on what it looks like so you can see it a little more clearly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and blow this out for a moment and we'll explore it with some modern light, but we just wanted to again show you how a carbide lamp works and what they used in mines many, many years ago. So I'm going to turn off the dripper here, slide this all the way off, which stops the water to the carbide. And then I'm going to go ahead and blow out the flame. And there we have it. And then I'm going to set this right over here. And don't let us forget to pick that up on the way out. So as I mentioned, when we were over at the cavern, this was an antimony mine. It was worked starting around 1900. The records for this particular mine are rather spotty, so I don't have a lot of information on a lot of its history. The tunnel isn't a particularly large tunnel, but there was a main haulage tunnel below that is collapsed today. So this wasn't the primary workings for the mine. Yeah, what do we got going on here? Okay. All right, so we've entered into this really large chamber here. You can see those stalls way up there and how far up it goes and stoping. And this is interesting. You can see there's this huge rock that sheared off here that wouldn't take much for it to slide over and seal this tunnel off for good. So we'll climb up in here and have a look. And it looks like we have another one of these kind of makeshift ladders back here that we saw in the cavern that we were checking out where the bat was. Kind of looks similar materials and construction. This one looks like it's deteriorated quite a bit. And it looks like we have some holes back in here, maybe for blasting. Pretty good size holes. Unless they had something like wood dowels in there to support platforms to get up here. Maybe it was more the likely reason for these large holes in here. And then looking back where we came in, you can see how high up this thing goes. Pretty good size. Okay, so the tunnel goes a little bit off to the right here. I don't think it goes too far, but this is kind of the thing that is very interesting. And that is this winds here. And been to this mine before, and I've never seen the water this high on this winds. Normally you can see down, I don't know, 40, 50 feet minimum to the water. The winds is somewhere around 75 feet-ish and kind of angles off. But you can see there how crystal clear that water is in blue. But it, generally speaking, come, I don't know, say September, that water will be all the way down. The other thing you always look at when you get around these winds is you look at these edges just to see what kind of material. So if that material goes under below our feet and isn't very thick, it could be a potential hazard. But also these winds a lot of times had wooden collars around them. So that wood can be all rotted, and if you stand on it, it can give way. So general good rule is to stay a couple feet back from the edge of that winds and examine the material here, just to make sure you're not standing on wooden or unstable material. But definitely cool to see this full, since I have never seen it this full. It's just really maybe not unique to someone watching, but it's kind of cool when you've seen places and the conditions change. So we'll continue down this tunnel here, which gets a little muddy. Not that we're not used to that, but like just to show you the conditions of these mines, especially for those of you who are not from the States or Washington specifically. Our mines are quite wet. And as we get back in here, you can start to see the oxidation, the sulfides. To see how this is all just leaching out of the walls everywhere. And the mine is sometimes visited. See where people left their initials using this acid mine drainage. And you can see how rapidly the materials change from where we just were back into this section, and how the echo, you can really make out the echo. I don't know how it sounds in the video, but it's pretty intense in here. See Drew over there for scale, how big this chamber is. Gonna make our way back towards the entrance there, and you can see the light at the portal, or no pun intended, light at the end of the tunnel. And gotta kind of get low through here, as all this material on the ground makes this a head bumper area. And maybe we'll just stop and check out some of this material here. Well, that about does it for this mine exploration adventure. We want to say thanks for following us on all of our social media platforms. If you like what we do, consider subscribing to our channel. If you don't want to subscribe, that's okay. Just check back with us every now and again. Don't forget to like and comment. And until our next adventure, take care.